The color beneath. The next tunnel entrance was lit from within by a color I couldn't name. I saw it through the windshield just after 3 in the morning, at the end of a road that had narrowed from 2 lanes to 1 and then to something barely wider than a farm track. Rain had been falling since midnight. It made the asphalt shine black beneath the headlights, and the trees on either side stood so close together that their wet branches scraped the roof whenever the road bent. I was driving because the highway had closed ahead of us. At least that was what the sign had said. Road closed. Use Old Pass. The detour had led us through a valley that did not appear on my phone's map. My sister Lena was asleep in the passenger seat, her forehead against the window, one hand curled beneath her chin. In the back, our friend Daniel had stopped talking almost an hour earlier. He was staring out into the darkness. We had been looking for the Old Pass because there was supposed to be a bridge at the far end. Instead, we found tunnels. The entrance was cut into a wall of black rock, perfectly round and impossibly clean. There were no signs, no barriers, no maintenance lights, yet something inside it was glowing. It was too pale to be bright and too dark to be dim. It seemed to contain the sensation of light without looking like light. When I stared at it, I thought of the inside of a seashell, then deep water, then the color behind closed eyelids when you press your palms against them. Rain ticked against the windshield. The engine idled with a low mechanical vibration beneath our feet. Then Daniel said, very quietly, "That's not a light." I looked down at the dashboard, then back at the tunnel. Then the engine temperature warning appeared. As we approached, the strange color spread across the wet pavement. It did not reflect in the usual way. Our headlights struck the ground, but the colored light seemed to rise from beneath the water itself. The tunnel mouth grew larger until the rock around it disappeared into darkness. Then we crossed the threshold. The tunnel walls were unfinished stone, but they were wet with a thin, clear film. When the headlights passed over them, the surface shivered. I slowed to 20 kilometers an hour. Daniel put his palm against the window. The wall is moving. The strange color remained ahead, suspended somewhere beyond the reach of our headlights. It did not seem farther away or closer. It seemed to be waiting at exactly the distance where we could never reach it. Then the radio turned itself back on. A voice came through the static. It was mine. "Don't stop." I nearly hit the wall. Lena grabbed the dashboard. The radio clicked off, but I could still hear the words in my head. The same tired breath between words. The same slight roughness. Then, from somewhere behind us, I heard another voice. "Don't stop." The tunnel narrowed. The walls now seemed softer. Water ran down them in slow vertical lines, gathering in shallow grooves that had not been there before. After another few minutes, the color ahead began to change. It seemed to deepen whenever we looked away, then become almost transparent when we stared directly at it. Daniel said, "We're going back." "There hasn't been a turn," I said. "There was room when we came in." I looked in the mirror. The car suddenly stopped. I pressed the accelerator. The engine revved, but the wheels did not turn. The color ahead brightened. Lena began crying quietly. She pointed toward the windshield. There were marks on the tunnel wall. Small vertical lines. Hundreds of them. They were arranged in groups of 4 with a 5th line crossing them. I got out my flashlight. The tunnel seemed to exhale. The sound was enormous, not loud but deep, the kind of sound that seemed to vibrate in my teeth. Then the wall beside him moved. Lena locked the doors. "Get in." Daniel did. I shifted into reverse. Something had changed behind us. The tunnel entrance was gone. Lena made a small sound. I stared through the rear window. The wall was smooth except for one thing. Pale handprint. It was on the inside of the glass. Not outside. Inside. Lena saw it. Daniel saw it. None of us touched it. The fingers were long and narrow. The palm flattened against the window as though someone had been trapped inside the car and was trying to get our attention. Then the handprint slowly faded. The color ahead pulsed, and the tunnel pulsed with it. That was when we understood. It wasn't the light illuminating the tunnel. The tunnel was producing the light. Or perhaps the light was the thing producing the tunnel. We could no longer tell which was inside which. I put the car in drive. The engine revved. The wheels turned. We moved forward. There was no choice anymore. The road sloped downward. The air smelled different. Wet stone had become something colder and mineral, like rainwater trapped underground for centuries. The color grew stronger. It began appearing on surfaces that should have been dark. None of it was reflected. It was simply there. I shut my eyes for a second. When I opened them, the color was still present. But now I could see shapes within it. Not objects, absences. Places where the light seemed to have been removed. They resembled doorways, all along the tunnel walls. Each one was the same size. Each one was slightly darker than the surrounding stone. And every one appeared to contain someone standing just beyond it. I couldn't see their faces. I could only see the suggestion of shoulders. They stood perfectly still. Daniel whispered, "Don't look at them." He pointed. One of the figures had moved. It was closer. I accelerated. The tunnel trembled. The figures shifted with it. Not walking, moving as part of the walls. Lena suddenly said my name. I looked at her. She was staring at the passenger window. "What?" "Your reflection." There was no reflection. The glass showed the tunnel. But where my face should have been, the strange color filled the window. I turned away. Then I heard breathing. From the back seat. Daniel's breathing was beside me. Lena's was beside me. The third breathing was directly behind my head. Slow, patient, waiting. I did not look. None of us spoke. The car continued downward. The vibration beneath us became rhythmic. For seconds, pause. For seconds, pause, like a heartbeat. Then 3 seconds. Pause. 3 seconds. Daniel whispered, "It's speeding up." He was right. The tunnel was reacting to us, to our fear, to our breathing, to the sound of our voices. It had learned our rhythm. The realization was worse than seeing anything could have been. We stopped talking. The vibration slowed. We stopped moving. It slowed further. I held my breath. The tunnel held its breath with me. For several seconds, there was absolute silence. Then the color disappeared. The headlights illuminated ordinary gray rock. There was an exit ahead. I almost laughed from relief. It was a narrow opening beneath a pale morning sky. We drove toward it. The moment the front tires crossed the threshold, birds began singing. The road outside was wet and familiar. We had come out on the highway. A police car was parked on the shoulder. An officer approached. He asked if we were all right. I said yes. He looked at the three of us. Then he looked at the car. "Where did you come from?" I pointed behind us. There was no tunnel. Only a steep rock face covered in moss. "There's never been a tunnel here." Daniel began laughing. Lena told the officer what had happened. He listened without interrupting. Then he asked us to wait in the patrol car while he called someone. I sat on the roadside, staring at the rock face. The strange color was gone. I thought that meant we were safe. Hours later, after the police had taken our statements and we had been driven to a nearby town, we checked into a motel. Daniel left before sunset. He refused to tell us where he was going. Lena stayed in my room. Neither of us slept. At 3:12 the next morning, the lights in the motel room flickered. Once, twice. Then the lamp beside the bed turned on. I watched it for several seconds. Then Lena whispered, "Look at the wall." I did. A thin band of color had appeared beneath the door. It was not coming from the hallway. It was coming from underneath the room. The same impossible color. It spread slowly across the carpet. No brighter than moonlight. No darker than shadow. It reached my shoe. I lifted my foot. The color remained beneath it. Then I heard a sound outside. A distant engine. Slowly approaching. I went to the window. The parking lot was empty. But the glass reflected something behind me. Not the motel room. Tunnel. Wet stone. rows of dark openings. And far inside one of them, that nameless color waited. Lena stood beside me. Her reflection was there too. Mine was not. Then, from somewhere beneath the floor, the tunnel made a sound. For seconds. Pause. For seconds. Pause. I realized it was waiting for my heartbeat to match. And when I looked down, the color was no longer beneath my feet. It was inside my chest. The road behind the glass. My rearview mirror showed brake lights behind me, but no road. I noticed them just after midnight, beyond the last town on Route 17. Rain had stopped only minutes earlier, leaving the pavement glossy and the fields silvered under thin moonlight. The forest stood in uneven rows, dark and watchful, as though the trees had crept closer during the storm. Two faint red points hovered in the mirror. I assumed another driver had come up behind me, grateful for the idea of another person on this lonely stretch of highway. But when I looked through the rear window, there was nothing. No headlights, no asphalt, only a flat blackness that looked painted over the glass. I slowed. The brake lights brightened. I sped up. They followed. For kilometers I tried to rationalize it, reflection, distant crossing, anything normal. But there were no side roads or houses. The fields were empty, the forest silent. When I tilted the mirror upward, the lights vanished. Tilted back, they returned. They moved with the mirror. They weren't outside the car. They were inside the reflection. The cabin smelled faintly metallic, like coins left in rain. At 100 kilometers an hour, the lights stayed the same distance away. Then I noticed the left one sat slightly higher. The angle shifted. Not because the road curved, because whatever held them had tilted. I focused on the center line, refusing to look. The silence outside became absolute. Even the tires seemed muted. Then the engine died. The car coasted, headlights still on. The brake lights brightened again, glowing like two small red suns. The faint click sounded behind me. Click. Pause. Click. The lights were closer. I pulled onto the shoulder. Locked the doors. The mirror showed the lights directly behind me, floating in darkness where the road should have been. My phone had no signal. The time was frozen at 12:47. Something moved in the mirror. The darkness rippled, as if something large passed between the lights and the reflection's surface. I turned around. Nothing. Turned back. The lights were gone. Then I heard a car door close somewhere behind me. Another. Soft, careful. Footsteps followed, heard only through the mirror, not the air. The red lights returned, farther apart now. Two small red windows. Something stood between them, its body an absence of reflection. I started the engine. It worked instantly. I drove. Minutes passed before I checked the mirror. The road behind me was visible again. Wet asphalt, white lines, trees. Relief hit hard. Then I noticed the reflected road had yellow lines. Mine had white. Far behind stood concrete barriers. The red lights appeared between them. I drove to the next town. Under bright gas station lights, everything felt normal. The clerk said there was no construction. While waiting for change, I glanced at the convex security mirror. Two red points stared back. Behind my car, the mirror showed a second version of the station, dark, empty, wet. The brake lights glowed in the middle of it. I left, didn't look at any mirrors. Drove until dawn. Birds returned. Trucks passed. The world felt real again. At home, underground parking smelled of oil and dust. I checked the rearview mirror. Nothing. Then the mirror changed. It showed the road from the night before. I was driving. I saw the back of my own head. Far behind were the two red lights. The reflected version of me raised its hand and touched the mirror from the other side. Palm pressed outward. I stumbled back. The garage returned. For days I avoided mirrors, covered the bathroom one, turned picture frames to the wall, kept curtains closed. Even the shine of metal bothered me. Reflections felt too eager, too ready to show something I didn't want to see. On the fourth morning, a car idled outside. I looked through the curtain. My car was still in the garage. The sound stopped. That evening, my phone displayed a photo I hadn't taken. My car, from behind, in the garage. The rear window was black. Reflected upside down were two red lights. The timestamp, 12:47. I deleted the photograph. It reappeared. I deleted it again. Came back. I stopped sleeping. Eventually, I convinced myself the only way to end it was to sell the car. I drove to a dealership during daylight. The salesman inspected it, started the engine, checked the tires, and offered me a reasonable price. Before handing over the keys, I asked him one question. Does the rearview mirror look normal to you? He glanced inside. Sure. I looked. The mirror showed the dealership lot. Cars. Blue sky. Bright afternoon. No red lights. I handed him the keys. As I walked away, I heard the engine start behind me. I turned. My old car rolled slowly toward the exit. The salesman was driving. I watched it disappear onto the street. For the first time in days, I felt relieved. Then I passed the glass doors of the dealership. My reflection walked beside me. I stopped. It stopped. I raised my hand. It raised its hand. Everything was normal. Then, over my shoulder, two red lights appeared in the glass. They were not behind me. They were behind my reflection. I turned around. Nothing. When I looked back at the glass, my reflection was still standing beside me. But the lights had moved closer. One was now visible inside my reflected eye. I went home on foot, removed every reflective surface. It helped, mostly. But sometimes, late at night, when the building is quiet and there is no traffic outside, I hear the faint sound of an engine idling somewhere beneath the floor. Then I hear two soft clicks, like brake lights coming on. Last night, brushing my teeth, I caught my reflection in the chrome faucet. For less than a second, I saw the bathroom behind me. Then I saw the road. Wet pavement, black trees, an empty lane stretching into darkness, and two red lights approaching. They were close enough that I could see the glow spilling across the reflected road. I stepped away from the sink. The reflection didn't. His mouth moved. I understood the words. Keep your eyes on the road. Behind me, something pressed its foot against the brake. A red glow appeared beneath the bathroom door.